Okay, at this time, we're going to reconvene the meeting of August 4th, 2014. Mr. Friend, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Roll call, please.
Sorry, Councilmember Friend? Here. Mayor Velazquez?
Here.
Councilmember Valdivia?
Here.
Councilmember Gomez?
Here.
City Manager Avra?
Present.
City Attorney Rovella?
Here.
And Chief of Police Westrick?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, I want to point out that Councilmember Scatini, or former Councilmember Scatini, is not absent. He submitted his letter of resignation from the City Council on July 31st, 2014, and this will be discussed later on the agenda. Can we have verification of agenda posting?
Yes, the agenda for the City Council meeting of August 4th was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on July 31st at 2:15 p.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you very much. City Attorney, do you have anything to report out from closed session? That would be you.
I think that's a no.
Sorry.
No.
Thank you very much. Let's move forward with recognition of one of our police officers. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Tonight is my honor to recognize Officer Carlos Rodriguez for a commendation. On July 6, 2014, at approximately 10:36 a.m., gunshots rang out in the city of Hollister. Two rival motorcycle groups decided to have an altercation in our city. Two groups met at Chevron gas station on San Felipe. In the aftermath of the initial shooting, several members of the motorcycle group lay wounded at the station. You, Carlos Rodriguez, were working patrol when the call came over the radio. Detective Sergeant Dan Wynn, who was near the area and heard the shots, described a chaotic scene over the radio as vehicles sped away and several shots were being fired. You immediately initiated a Code 3 response, that's lights and siren, from the area of 3rd and Monterey Street. Prior to arriving, you coordinated with other responding officers to position your patrol vehicles adjacent to the sound wall on the corner of San Felipe Road and Highway 25 to afford some type of cover prior to entering an unknown scene. Knowing firearms had been fired, you retrieved your department rifle and your individual first aid kit prior to entering the scene on foot. When you arrived, you noticed numerous bikers standing around the far west gas pump area. You also observed several more huddled around a subject lying on the ground who appeared to have been shot and was lying in a large pool of blood. You ran over to the subject, observed another biker holding a bloody shirt against a wound on the chest of that person. You also observed the wounded male had also suffered a gunshot wound to his left forearm, and there was blood emanating from that wound as well. You appropriately identified this as a possible arterial bleed. One of his friends had applied a leather belt above the wound to act as a makeshift tourniquet, but it was ineffective, and the wound continued to bleed. Despite the still chaotic scene, and not knowing if there was any other shooters present, you slung your rifle and began first aid by applying an occlusive dressing to the biker with a gunshot wound to his left chest area. You then applied and secured a tourniquet to the man's left arm above the gunshot wound, which stopped the bleeding. As you were doing this, your attention was drawn to another man who had been shot in the chest. You observed a white male adult who appeared disoriented and was holding his chest, standing approximately 4 feet from you. The man dropped to his knees as you observed blood stain on the right side of his shirt in his chest area. You immediately rushed over to that man and had him lie flat on his back. You lifted up the man's shirt and observed a single gunshot wound to his chest. You'd applied an occlusive dressing to the wound, applied pressure to it, and elevated the man's legs to prevent him from going into shock. You asked other members of his group who had been standing there to continue elevating his legs. As you went back, check the first man you helped. You then monitored both subjects until fire and medics arrived and entered the scene and began to treat both victims. Medical attention to these individuals would have come several valuable minutes later until medics had arrived and the scene was rendered safe to enter. Your immediate medical attention to these individuals, in the absence of any other first aid, may have contributed to saving their lives. Your actions during that day exemplify the high standards and values of Hollister Police Department. You are commended for your commitment to service and professionalism in your actions under such a stressful situation. Signed by me. Without further ado, I'd like to call Officer Carlos Rodriguez up here, please. Last year, we started handing out challenge coins to the best of our best. Those that, like Carlos, do things that are their job but are extraordinary in nature. It's with great pleasure tonight and a lot of pride that I will award this challenge coin, the first one I've awarded this year, to one of our officers, to Officer Carlos Rodriguez. Officer Rodriguez is but one example of many of our dedicated employees. As you know, I'm quite proud of all of them. Tonight, it's Carlos's night. I'm very proud tonight. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you all very much for this. I really appreciate it. Regarding what happened, it was extremely tragic, and I'm just glad that I was able to help and very happy that nobody lost their lives. I would definitely like to take this opportunity to give credit to our investigations division for the subsequent arrests that were made. So overall, it was just a really good team effort, and thank you very much.
Great job. Thank you very much. Tonight we have 3 proclamations. We have Farm Workers Health Day, National Health Center Week, Breastfeeding Awareness Month.
Angelica Rojas is here to receive those.
Farm Worker Health Day. Whereas an estimated 3 to 5 million migrant and seasonal farm workers are employed in the nation's multi-billion-dollar agriculture industry, and whose backbreaking labor makes possible the production and harvest of many crops. Now therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, do hereby proclaim that the 14th of August, 2014 is hereby proclaimed Farm Worker Health Day in the City of Hollister. Here's your first one. Let's see if you worked on it. She has 3 here, so she wants to do it all at one time. National Health Center Week. Whereas for nearly 50 years, America's community health centers have provided high-quality, cost-effective, and accessible primary and preventative care to all individuals, regardless of insurance status or ability to pay. Therefore, be it resolved, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, do hereby proclaim August 10th through 16th, 2014 as National Health Center Week. One more to go. Breastfeeding Awareness Month. Whereas all available knowledge indicates that human milk optimally enhances the growth, development, and well-being of the infant by providing the best possible nutrition and protection against serious health conditions, including obesity, diabetes, and allergies. Now, therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, and the City Council hereby proclaim August 2014 as Breastfeeding Awareness Month in the City of Hollister, California, in order to actively promote breastfeeding as the optimum and preferred method of infant feeding and as a community cultural norm. Thank you very much.
Now I could say a few words. Good evening, everybody. My name is Angelica Rojas, and I am a health educator and community outreach coordinator for the San Benito Health Foundation. And every year we celebrate these three events: the National Health Center Week, the National Farm Workers Health Day, and the National Breastfeeding Awareness Month. And on August 15th, I would like to invite all my city councils, and then everybody in the community is also invited. From 12 to 2, we're having a health fair, August 15th at the San Benito Health Foundation. And that's celebrating the all three events. In the evening, we have an open house from 4 to 7. And on August 14th, we do a special event at the migrant camp, and we actually go and we provide dental and nutrition and health services to all of our migrant and seasonal farm workers. As you all know, they are one of our most vulnerable populations and most underserved in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's move forward to item A, consent resolution. Are there any items council would like to pull?
I would like to pull A12.
A12?
Yes.
Any others from council? Do we have any speaker cards on any items?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to make a motion that we approved amended section A1 through A14 without
Is that a motion?
A12.
That's a motion.
Second?
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. 4-0 vote. A12, please.
Okay, that's a CDBG?
Okay, you're going to excuse yourself.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Valdivia is going to excuse herself. There might be a potential for a conflict. Okay.
Is there a
please.
specific question, Councilperson Friend, or would you like to just
Yeah,
a brief?
Basically, it's just confusing. Why are we, well,
Sorry.
where are we coming up with $460,000?
Well,
Why is this being changed like this?
Okay, so what it is that if you'll recall, the Community Food Bank Hovanes and the Youth Alliance all received community services grants under the CDBG program last year. As the city of Hollister is navigating their way through the process with the state, we've submitted everything to the state of California that they have required in order for us to actually have them disperse the funds to us. At this point, the Community Food Bank has requested a payment in the amount of, I think it's $80,000, is that correct? $80,000 because their operations that's what they require to get them by the next couple months. The assumption is that by then, the state of California will be prepared to execute all the rest of their documents and disperse the CDBG money. So essentially what we're doing is we're just kind of fronting them the money. The money will be reimbursed back to the city. It comes off of the total. This is not new money to the Community Food Bank. This is just sort of an advance, so to speak.
Okay, I guess I didn't realize that we were responsible for dispersing.
Yes, the state money
grant.
comes to us, and then we disperse it to the other agencies,
Okay,
the grant recipients.
all right.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from council?
I'd
No.
like to make a motion that we approve A12.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries, 3-0 vote, 1 abstained. Item B, there is no business. Wait for Vice Mayor to come back out. If the council doesn't object, I'd like to move item I-1 forward. Supervisor Dela Cruz is here and would like to speak on that, but he has a meeting at 7 o'clock, if that's okay with council.
No.
I guess.
Okay, we'll discuss item
Just because he wears a tie?
Which one are
today.
we discussing?
I-1,
Oh, I-1?
yes.
Okay.
You want to do it now?
Supervisor?
Thank you, council members, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Robbie Scatini for serving in the capacity as a city council member for District 2, knowing that it's actually in the heart of my district as a supervisor district. And I want to thank you and I'm honored that you guys are allowing me to speak today's meeting. What I have here, Mr. Scatini, will you please come to the podium? As a citizen of the community, all the hard work that you've done in behalf of the city and all the partnerships that you've done for both the county and the city, the Highway 25, the biker rally, all the other partnerships, the fire department, the consolidation of the fire department, all these other great programs you've done. We're going to miss you. I'm going to miss you. I'll be back. I will miss you for the time being. And rumor has it you'll be running for office. So. That's true. And unfortunately, you will no longer live in my district. Otherwise, I would have voted for you. Thank you. And so, as a member of the Board of Supervisors, I'd like to present you with a certificate of recognition for your service as a city council member from December 6, 2010 through July 31st, 2014. Congratulations on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. We can go forward with the discussion on the item.
Okay, as you know, Councilmember Scatini submitted his letter of resignation to the city clerk's office on Thursday, July 31st. And pursuant to the California Government Code Section 36512, subsection B, if a vacancy occurs in an elective office, the city council shall, within 60 days, either fill the vacancy by appointment or call for a special election. It's really not going to work to call for a special election because Mr. Scatini's term was up for District 2, so that position is open and will be on the ballot in November. So, in my opinion, it would behoove the council to appoint someone from the District 2, to complete the term. And it should not be someone running for council at this point. Yes?
I was gonna ask you, don't we have people that have already pulled papers for that council seat?
I have two, but, I mean, and that is entirely up to the city council. It's your decision. I just think it should be someone that's not running so that you're not giving someone an advantage.
Okay, is there any other questions from council?
Yeah, I was just, if I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have a question. I agree. I think it needs to be appointed because it's such a short time. So are we going to be looking at soliciting some applications for people who are interested? Is that what we're going to be looking at?
You can certainly do that. If one of you knows someone that lives in the district that might be interested, you can bring up names. It's entirely up to the city council.
So they need to be from District 2?
They have to be from District 2.
Okay. Because I know in the past, the council would solicit applications, and then they would go over them, and then they would decide who they were going to select. Let's say we have 3 for conversations'
That's
sake.
correct. A number of
And the
years
3
ago, there
folks
was-
would be reviewed or whatever the process is, and then the council would decide.
A number of years ago, that is exactly what happened,
Okay.
yes.
I just wanted to throw that in.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yeah, I don't think it should be anybody that's going to be running for that seat, because I do think it would give them an unfair advantage, especially being appointed to it. So I'm fine with that. Obviously, I don't want to call for a special election right before this. We only got, less than 120 days left before the winning candidate would be sworn into office anyways. So I'm fine with requesting for applications and then giving us the opportunity to go through those and then appoint somebody for the remainder of the term.
Okay.
And thank you, Robbie. It was a pleasure working with you over the past few months. Hopefully, if things go good, then you may be coming as I'll be going, so we'll see you.
Councilmember Friend?
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think we should be calling for a special election for a 4-month deal. My concern is if we make a notice tonight and we give the public 2 weeks to file papers with us to ask for volunteers, we're looking at 1st of September before we can appoint, then we're down to actually 2 months.
Well, 3, because the new person wouldn't be seated until the first meeting in December.
In December, so 3 months. I'm just wondering, is 120 days, are we gonna be able to find a citizen that wants a job for 90 days? I'm
You
not
never
sure
know.
we're gonna be able to do that. I would like to think so, but
I would too.
I see us sitting here in October, just the 4 of us. I just don't see somebody wanting that job for 3 months. That's
To be honest with you, I wouldn't even care to fill this position.
Well,
But
there-
it says that we have to.
There's a,
we have to
it
make
gets-
an attempt.
it gets tricky there because if we call for a special election, if we don't appoint somebody, we have to call for a special election, and it'd be no less than 114 days, so it would be after the election. So what I would recommend or suggest, you said there's 2 people that have pooled paper, or
That's
they
correct.
they completed?
One has completed, one has not.
Okay, I would recommend if the other person does not complete the paperwork, we could appoint that person. If not, open it to the public next week, once the filing period is over, and we could find some candidates to appoint somebody for that term. There's a lot of fine citizens in our community in District 2 that I'm sure are willing to come up and help us out for a few months. Would that be all right with the council?
Yeah,
If it's going to be
the other way to go.
unopposed, and
If it's unopposed, then we can appoint
Absolutely.
that person. If not, we'll put it out to the public and find a person we can appoint.
I completely expect this other applicant to file.
Right,
Yeah.
just stating a case that does
Right,
not happen.
Right,
So we have to, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, so we
Yes.
do have 2 applications, Jerry?
yes.
Oh, okay.
So I think we should put out the notice tonight that they have 2 weeks to, citizens that are not running for office need to let us know if they would like to have the seat for 3 months.
2 weeks from, a week from today. So,
A week
Just-
might be short.
yeah.
Yeah, I would think.
Okay, City Clerk, what would you recommend? And
Okay,
we can.
let's do this. Let's have the city clerk's office, we'll come up with an application. It's too late to get a notice in the freelance this Friday, but we'll do it for next Friday and then have a deadline after that. In the meantime, I'm sure that folks live within the district might recommend someone come in and get an application, and then we'll submit those to you as soon as we can, and then you can make an appointment at no later than September 2nd.
Is the council okay with this?
I would agree with that.
Is there a consensus? Please move forward on
Okay.
your
we
recommendation.
will. Thank you.
And good luck, Robbie.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, before you leave this one topic, I did take a look at the city council committees. Everyone knows that Mr. Scatini has served on a lot of committees, and most of the committees have an alternate that can fill in. The only one that does not is the Fire Protection Committee. That's just the mayor and Councilmember Scatini. So you might want to appoint an alternate to that so that you can move forward.
Councilmember Friend has graciously volunteered to join me on that committee.
Thank you.
If
Just
that's all
for,
right with the other council members.
and just for clarification, who's the alternate on COG?
It's Councilmember Valdivia.
Okay.
Okay?
And
Great, thank you.
How about the intergovernmental committee? Is there an alternate on the intergovernmental?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's Ray Friend.
That one too.
I'd like to announce Ray Friend has retired from his full-time job. So
I'm
now,
available now.
now he has more time to be with us. Okay.
You still want to
If-
thank Robbie?
Thank you.
So if it's all right with council, we'll appoint Ray Friend to the Fire Committee and Intergovernmental Committee. Is that fine with council?
Fine.
Thank you very much. Move forward now with items C1, public input. This is time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, I have one. Bernard Ramirez.
Mayor, Councilman, my name is Bernardo Ramirez. To my left is Danny Villalone. His son is currently serving in the United States Army. I'm here this evening to present a program. It's a banner program for your consideration. What it is flags of our soldiers that are now currently serving in San Benito County. I believe there's a little over 40 with the permission of the family members. What it is, it's a 17 by 36 inch flag, both sided, heavy vinyl with brackets. I would like them consider to go down the main street under the lighted lights. They would go up twice a year, Memorial Day and Veterans Day. They will come down when the service member comes home, and they will be given the flag. The cost will be no cost to the city. There will be donations or family members. Like Danny has said, he would love to pay for his son's flag to be put on there. I think for the city of Hollister, I think it would be a great feather in the city of Hollister's hat, knowing that we support our servicemen that are in danger all the time. This is the first of the time. First of a kind program. They've done it in big cities that I've seen it, and I thought, why can't Hollister do it? So in your consideration, I don't know what the next steps are. This is my first time to this. I would consider.
We can't ask any questions on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Richmond.
Good evening, everybody. Marty Richmond from Hollister. I wasn't prepared for that previous presentation, but I don't know if it'll work exactly as they described, but certainly the basic concept's a good idea. As many of you probably know, the number of Americans who are honored to serve their nation has shrinked enormously over the years, and it's about to shrink again as they give about 100,000 men their boot out of the service because they're reducing, as they often do. So you think you have a career for many, and I've seen them over my career, people who serve 14 or 16 years and think they have a career, and they wind up with a piece of paper saying, thank you very much for your service while the shooting was going on. Now that the shooting has stopped, we don't need you anymore. So this, I think this is it's very apropos to honor those veterans who are serving and have served, and I'm always very proud to tell people I'm from Hollister because of all the veterans who are in town here.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, most of them are Marines, but that's forgivable. I say go Army.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richmond.
Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. At this point, we'll move forward to item D1, report on industrial wastewater treatment plant. Many of you may have noticed a foul odor throughout our city over the last week. The treatment plant operators and the cannery and engineering, our city have been working hard trying to come up with a solution and figuring out what happened. And they're here tonight to give us an update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight with us, we have Manny Molina and Jose Rodriguez from Veolia Water of North America, and Kent Rounds and Eric Fortes of San Benito Foods. Manny's going to be up here giving you a brief presentation, a brief PowerPoint explaining the situation and where we're going from here. So with that, I'd like to introduce Manny Molina.
Honorable Mayor, distinguished members of the council, thank you very much for having me here. I was tasked to come before council and citizens of Hollister to brief all on the conditions that arose, steps that were taken, and action that will be taken to mitigate odor potential in the future. So again, I thank you for this privilege to come before you representing, again, a team of people who have worked on this item over the past week. Again, as mentioned, I'm the project manager for Veolia Water. Jose Rodriguez is the operations supervisor. We are contracted by the city of Hollister to operate the city's domestic and industrial wastewater treatment facilities. What I'd like to do is briefly review the timeline of tomato processing, and then discuss some near-term actions taken by the team, and then present actions taken and proposed to mitigate the potential for future off-site odor generation, and then following this, answer any council questions that you may have. Let's see, let me go up one. First, what is this? Nothing to most folks. Exciting stuff to me. This but it suffice to say, here's my little pointer. Here we go. Okay, suffice to say that we begin July 1, and this discussion covers up to August 4th. And you'll see basically in the first half, these lines show flat lines, which means effectively nothing is happening or nothing is changing. Then about mid-month, things begin to happen. And I just want to show you these general trends that show basically there's this black line represents flow to the plant, nothing is occurring. Then starting around July 10th, flows begin to increase into the plant. In response to that, pond 1, which is represented by this brown line, is effectively laying flat. Then in response to flows coming in, it begins to fill up where it finally reaches full boat, meaning the full operating level of the plant, and it's steady as flows begin to transfer from pond 1 to pond 2. Then you see that pond responding. These blue lines represent oxygen, and that is critical to the biological process. They start off very high, they drop off in response to the increase in flows, and then you see them kind of jumping around, then beginning to stabilize. So, once again, not a gas. Okay, great. So here is the timeline. I'm out of gas. Basically, item number 1, pre-season flows begin around July 10th, and that's essentially washdown activity in preparation for cannery, though there's no, in fact, tomato processing occurring at this time. Around July 15th, tomato processing flows begin to come into the plant, and they increase. They came in about 200,000 gallons per day, 300,000 gallons per day, and then they begin to increase, and then they average about 2.5 million gallons of water per day. That is significant because you have one processing facility producing 2.5 million gallons of water, of wastewater to these ponds, wherein your domestic wastewater treatment facility operates at about 2.2 million gallons. So you have the entire community of wastewater contributors to the domestic plant being outproduced by one contributor. So these are significant, kind of 0 to 100 miles an hour in one day, or in a few days rather. And you'll see that in response to these flows, pond 1 flows begin to decrease to that red line. That red line is critical. That red line represents a 2.0 milligram per liter concentration that the state board says you cannot fall below that number or else you are in violation. That number represents the ability of the biological process to treat the material coming in into control odors. So you can see the blue lines drop down, they kind of tickle the line, and then they begin to increase past it. You see that pond number 1 is effectively running empty, then it begins to increase, and it takes 16.3 million gallons of water coming in for that pond to finally reach operating level. 16.3 million gallons operates about represents about 7 days of equivalent flow flowing to the domestic plant from all the citizens of Hollister. So that's a significant amount of water. Finally, that water begins to cascade into pond 2, and it takes yet another 17.4 million gallons to fill that pond to get it to operating level. I bring up those two numbers, that 33 million gallons of water, because for all intents and purposes, that's about 14 days of treatment at the domestic plant, and I keep on comparing the two to show you the impact and significance San Benito Foods has in the amount of water it takes to process wastewater. They effectively outproduce all the citizens on a day-to-day basis. That water also represents the significant impact this year's drought had on all of us. Even these ponds, they continue to drop and drop and drop and drop and level. And that becomes critical as that water level drops. That water level gets closer and closer to solids that through the natural process are inventoried in the ponds. As I mentioned at point 6, the DOs decreased to 1.96, which is within the statistical acceptance for the regional board of 2.0, though still, I'm technically below 2.0, but we were there. Then on September 27th, an odor is detected by Veolia by the operations supervisor, who calls the on-call operator at 12:30 in the morning. That person was very pleased to receive that call. And I say that tongue-in-cheek because we are pleased to serve the citizens here, and we will respond. That's what you contracted us to do. So we responded to the plant on Sunday morning in the very early hours, and as a mitigative or upfront measure, we turned on some aerators just in case, and we measured the pond DOs, and they were in fact again at that 1.6 level, and then they averaged and continued to be at that 2.9. From 7/29 through 31, city calls are being received reporting odors, and that's going to be an item I want to get back to here briefly. Then on 7:30, the city calls a meeting of the odor stakeholders. That meeting was called by the mayor, who represents the citizens, and he wanted to bring the stakeholders together, the citizens whom he represented, city staff represented by the city manager and engineering, Veolia Water, and San Benito Foods, to discuss what has happened and what are we going to do to correct and keep this from happening again. So this meeting has been called, and here were the results. Here's a basic timeline. As I mentioned, Veolia responds to these calls on Sunday morning. As a precautionary action, we put on some aerators. On the 28th, which would have been a Monday, city staff begins receiving odor complaints. They begin investigating the status of sewer line chemical odor control at San Benito Foods. Now, I want to stop there very quickly to clarify some I don't want to say misinformation, but some misunderstood information. The chemicals added by San Benito Foods are part of their chemical treatment process to peel the tomatoes. It has a side effect of helping to control odors. On about, I believe it was the 19th? 19th, they were in fact operating that system. And there was some misinformation between the city and San Benito Foods as to when that started. I later mentioned the 29th. That is in fact incorrect. Those chemicals were being added on the 19th. So Veolia continues to maintain aerator DOs above the permit required limit of 2 milligrams per liter. On the 29th, because it is a permit issue, we notify the regional board. We hide nothing. This is an important item. Nuisances are a trackable item within the permit, we report it. We are above ground at all times in all instances. We participate in the stakeholders meeting, and on the 31st, we request an additional 200,000 gallons per day of water be discharged by San Benito Foods from their well to help dilute the odors coming into the plant. That ran up until today, and I want to say that within 20 minutes of the call requesting that water, San Benito Foods responded. So San Benito Foods has been a responsive and responsible corporate citizen in all this activity. What did city staff do? They begin notifying us on the 28th of the odor issues, and they begin investigating upstream to see what San Benito Foods is doing regarding their chemical addition. And as I mentioned, that work was in fact executed on the 19th. On the 29th, they continue to update us through the 29th through the 31st on the various odor reports being called in by citizens. And here's where the citizens' calls were critical to what was occurring. Most of the calls coming in were simply stating, it smells, it smells. Yet some citizens called in and said, it smells, but not all the time. It is intermittent. And that was a key component for Veolia to understand what was occurring, because what was occurring is, again, as the ponds began reaching their operating level, we had these pieces of equipment that suck up water, throw it up in the air to provide oxygen to it. Well, at times, those devices were in fact sucking up sludge intermittently and casting that into the air and causing the odors to be intermittent, as it were. We, at that point, then turned off those aerators and turned on other aerators that would not cause that to happen. So the citizens' involvement was crucial to what Veolia Water could do in response to the odors, because we are not there 24/7, however your noses are. And as a result, we were able to react very quickly to those bits of information and make adjustments to our treatment process to mitigate the odor control. And again, we attended the meeting called by the mayor to address these odor complaints. What are the near-term actions that are going to be taken? What are the long-term actions that could be taken? So that's what Veolia did. What did the city do? City staff, again, is notifying us. They're responding in the field. They're looking at the sewer lines. They're participating in the meeting. San Benito Foods, again, that is incorrect information that they placed the chemicals into production on 7/29. That was in fact 7/19. So 10 days earlier, well in advance of the odors, they were adding chemical. They attended the stakeholder meetings. They participated on what they could do on their end of the pipe to assist in these. And as I mentioned earlier, within 30 minutes of a request, San Benito Foods immediately began sending us water. So that's what we did. And from about the 30th, when we had this meeting, up until today, the odor complaints dropped off significantly. Now we're just down to the standard tomato smell that you are going to smell. But we have moved away from the significant, more obnoxious odors that people were calling and complaining about. So that's what we've done near term. Long term, what's on the books? So again, let's get to the rat killing, because that's what people want to know. What are we going to do to keep this from happening again? Well, initially, by responsibility, the city and San Benito Foods are going to review the efficacy of the industrial pretreatment permit. There is a permit that the San Benito Foods operates by that is administered by the city. The current permit is from 2009. It's time to go back and reevaluate that permit to see if it's working as well as it can be to control items upstream that would be contributors to the odors. So that work will occur to assure that the permit conditions are germane, executed, and recorded. City action will, they're going to increase staff's pre-processing season inspections of San Benito Foods to gauge the preparedness to process. Okay, we have a permit, that's nice. You say you're taking actions, that's nice. But city staff, they're from Missouri. Show me. Show me how you've prepared, what you've done, that you're ready to do this. Additional city action. The city does flush that transmission line between San Benito Foods and Industrial Wastewater Treatment Facility. However, with the drought, the waters that were relied upon during the wet weather season to wash some of those solids into the plant did not happen, and so when processing started, some of that material was flushed and generated some odors and demand on the plant right up front that caused some of the challenge to controlling odors. So as a consequence, it has been recommended and will be implemented that up to 3 times per year, the city will work to remove accumulated solids that impede flow and contribute to odors when disturbed. And again, some of what we're going to gauge, what city staff will gauge is the wet weather. If wet weather has been low, we're going to increase flushing with hydrants. If it's been good, then we'll do it postseason and preseason. And when I say we, and again, we're in this together. The citizens, engineering, operations, Veolia, San Benito, because this facility is important to all of us. It's important to the the economic viability of the community. These are people, our neighbors, who depend upon this work. The city depends upon the revenue, and as well, you've contracted us to operate that facility. Without that facility, we have to address staffing at our plant as well. So it's to our own interest that this plant run and run well, continue to run well. Water. Again, I mentioned that 33 million gallons of water that was drained out of those ponds due to the drought, which really stressed the plant when it began seeing flows come in. We will evaluate 30 days prior to the anticipated start of canning whether or not we need more water, and that water will either be augmented and brought to full boat through well water, which is not the first choice in that is a raw water for potable use. That's a very valuable commodity. The city has this pristine, state-of-the-art facility that produces recycled water that with some capital improvements, there's the potential to bring that recycled water over to the industrial plant to bring that up so that the precious groundwater can be reserved and that recycled water could be used for what its intended purposes, recycle, reuse, and benefit from that. As well, the crosshairs, if you will, of city staff will not be trained alone on San Benito Foods, but they're going to train it on Veolia as well. They will perform their pre-season inspections of the facilities we are charged to operate to gauge our preparedness to handle wastewater flows as well. Again, it's one thing for San Benito Foods to say, oh yeah, we're ready. It's one thing for Veolia Water to say, oh yeah, we're ready. It's another thing for the city of Hollister to say, show us that you're ready. And San Benito Foods will prepare well for that inspection. As well, Veolia will determine if there's sufficient biology to exist in the pond. Again, these ponds sit idle for many, many months with no food. It changes from a tomato processing, a bad Bloody Mary, if you will, to effectively a pond where goose and ducks reside. When those wastes come in, the plant is not prepared to receive that sudden load of waste from the tomato plant. Therefore, Veolia Water, using its expertise, will analyze that, and if the ponds need to be brought seasoned, if you will, prior to tomato processing, we'll advise the city and San Benito Foods of that to augment that food source such that the biology develops, such that when the tomato flows begin coming, the plant is prepared to receive those flows. And then finally, city and San Benito Foods will evaluate the impact of, quite frankly, the system is very old, and there are certain processes that were retired that we want to evaluate. You know, should those be reinstituted, or are there workarounds such as the screening system that San Benito Foods put upstream that would augment and render no longer needed some of the systems that have been retired. And then we'll evaluate the impact of the sludge and the capacity of the plant and see if anything needs to be done there, and a separate plan of action will come out of that item number 7. So again, there are some things that we can execute. There's some other things that we can't execute until the end of the season, when we can make a complete evaluation of the data. So again, I hope I haven't spoken out of turn here. I believe I've represented staff and the stakeholders and the citizens appropriately, but if not, again, others are welcome to come and speak. So at this point in time, if council has any questions, I or the persons present here would be pleased.
Councilmember
to
Friend?
answer.
I guess my question is water the only answer? I mean, we have people being asked to turn their lawns brown, not to use water, and now we're gonna put 3 million extra gallons of water just to flush that system out? I mean, is water the only answer? Is there no other way to treat that waste?
Well, the waste in the lines, unfortunately, it's the only way to safely get into the pipes and move the material. There is sedimentation that occurs, just naturally occurs. You know, as the ebb and flow of the water goes in there, some of it settles and some of it carries on.
But I mean, with the state declaring this drought restrictions and everything, how do we deal with that? I mean,
You know,
stretching down the road, they could walk in and say, you're not gonna process if that's how much water you're gonna use.
Yeah, and that's why beginning to assess the value that domestic water plant provides in that recycled water. Again, the infrastructure to bring water into the city exists up to the river and it terminates there. To bring it another mile or so, you know, up into the city where hydrants dedicated to flushing alone, you know, that would be a cool way to skin that cat, because, you know, it is water that's already been used, treated, and can be used over and over again as it chases its tail. But that's capital improvement that is with cost, but it is, the long-term benefit would be amazing, because now that you bring that line into town, you can begin looking at other opportunities, landscape irrigation, that type of use for those waters where you could take yourself off. But that is a kind of, quite frankly, a policy level, forward-thinking decision that needs to be evaluated and considered.
I hear what you're saying. It just seems to me like this is not the time to be wasting water. Even non-potable water
Right.
can be used, and now we're going to be spending money to construct a pipeline to run this non-potable water up to clean this out. I mean,
Yeah, and there are
at some point, we're going to have to look at the economic value here of, then why are we doing this? Just to run that one plant for 3 months?
Yeah, I don't have an answer. There are other pieces of equipment. The city has very small equipment to flush lines where you can use less water to move more material, but that's probably a $275,000 to $325,000 expense in and of itself that you could hydrojet.
Well, I don't think the
those
city
lines.
should spend the money.
Pardon me?
I don't think the city should spend the money.
Right. So again, but in answering your question, are there other options? Yes, there are, and these would be some that would be placed on the table to be considered at a later date.
I think, just so we're clear, it's, most of that water would be used to fill the level up of that pond so they can start introducing bacteria. So that water would be coming from the treated water that's relatively close by. That's the
A
main.
mile away.
Yeah,
So
well,
that's not going to be just running garden hoses up.
no, it's not, but it's, we had a major problem this year, and it's, that, the main, I think, and you guys can speak to this, the main problem was having that pond primed and ready to go, because when this hit this year, it was clear the reasons out there. I mean, obviously, the major problem is some of that sludge removal that needs to be moved out, but getting the pond ready at a level with the bacteria it needs to, when that 2 million gallons starts flowing in from that, the cannery, it needs to be ready. If not, the consequence is what we experienced this year. So having it primed and ready to go is very important. And part of the process of the cannery is really a process of getting their equipment ready, and water does start to flow out earlier as they're preparing for their season. So some of that will be coming through the lines, but the majority would be to fill the pond up to a level where they can feed it with bacteria and get that rolling. Are there any other questions from council?
No, but I do want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank Veolia and San Benito Foods for coming together and addressing the issues. I think maybe because of the wind direction, I didn't get one complaint from my constituents in my district in the southeast side of Hollister, but I think it may have been the way the wind travels. I think I may have lucked out on that one. But obviously, coming downtown, it was miserable down here. So I'm glad that you put that meeting together and that all the stakeholders came together, and like it was stated, we just need to come together and figure out a solution for next year, because we haven't had any rain for quite some years now. So we can't depend on that. So we need to have a solution before next operating year begins.
I'd like to thank you guys. I had the pleasure of going out to the ponds every day during these times to see what was going on and learning what the process was. My car still smells like the ponds. But I was impressed to see everybody working together and working towards a solution. This was one of those times where everything hit against us, and it's important that we have these conversations. The cannery is a very important part of our community. We want to make sure you're here, and obviously our community is what we're here for. We don't want them to experience that type of those odors again. And I think really it just comes down to the steps you're talking about here. I think it's time we really look at doing the drying beds at the treatment facility so we can remove some of that sludge, let it dry out, and then transport it out at obviously lower costs, quite a bit lower, and see what we can do to divert some of the water that's been treated back over to the ponds again, so we prime it for the next season. And I think if we do all those things, we won't get rid of the smell entirely. It is a cannery processing tomatoes. We're going to smell some odors, but we should never have to go through what the citizens went through in that side of town. And I smelled it from my house every morning and every evening. So
I agree. And again, the leadership you took in coordinating the group opened up some doors that were not necessarily closed, but did not know they were available. Prior to this, I had to work, prior to Viola being on the job, Dennis Rose had, as a representative of the city, had direct contact with San Benito Foods. I, as a contractor, could not, under the charge that I understood, could not operate directly with San Benito Foods. At the meeting that was held on the 30th, I was given that latitude to work directly with San Benito Foods such that things could be handled much more quickly, because there's other items that city staff handle besides wastewater. And so that worked to both San Benito and Viola's benefit, and ultimately to the citizens' benefit as well.
And I really want to thank Jose also for, he contacted me Sunday night. He tracked me down to let me know what was happening, and sure enough, as I opened the door, it was clear what was going on. But making the effort to find me and track me down that way, I was very impressed with what he does and what you do. So I'm very happy with the company. Do we have speaker cards?
Yeah, I have something, if I can.
Oh, Councilmember.
Well, I want to go ahead and also thank you for your efforts in terms of dealing with the problem. I know we went through the series of the sewer at one point, some time ago, and I'm glad you're looking at that right now, because it can get worse. But I also want to thank you for continue to process tomato here in San Benito County. I really appreciate that, because I know we employ a lot of folks in the community, and that's really important. I appreciate that very much. Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah, San Benito Foods, thank you as well.
Thank you. We have a speaker.
Gordon Machado.
Good evening. I don't have a slide presentation. I don't have the technology of what was all said. I'm not sure I understood what was all said, The only thing is, I understand at my home, which we're in the south end of town, that smell was there a week and a half, and even last night there was a faint smell. And I said, and then of course the weather is warm, so you want to leave your doors open, get the breeze. But in this case, you want to shut your doors, like your car. If you don't shut the doors, shut your windows, you maintain that smell for the next day. The only thing I like to say is that the time element, a week and a half seems a long time. I appreciate the effort that was made, but it's still a week and a half. And I remember back 20, 25 years ago when the same thing happened. And the city called in the crop dusters, and they bombed or dropped, whatever you want to call it, the ponds, those industrial ponds, with about 15 or 20 passes with lime pellets. And within hours, it was gone, you know. And of course, it came up a little bit again, and they did a second, 3 or 4 days later, they did a second pass over with a lot less pallets of lime, but they also did it again. But my whole point is, it was immediate. It wasn't a week and a half of the smell and all that. So the technology today, the volume, I heard all that. I don't know if it's possible, but I appreciate it now, more so now that it was done immediately and was over with 25 years ago. So.
Thank you.
You know, I agree with the speaker's recommendation. Unfortunately, the state has put restrictions on salts, and to add those lime pellets would, the reason the lime works is the salts in the pellets bind the hydrogen sulfide, and now you are restricted, heavily restricted. Part of what is driving this La Salle water treatment facility because of the groundwater plan that is here. So that particular avenue is not an option, but there are other more natural means that if we can do this now in advance, that will not add salts, that we can utilize the water, that we can utilize bacteria, we can use items that will not be in conflict with the permit, we will implement those. And I agree with the speaker. You know, 7 to 10 days is a long time when you're the person living downstream, and I regret as the operator that occurred, and that we can assure the city that we're going to do everything within our purview to assure that doesn't happen again. Yeah, but again, it is the input of the citizens that that these ideas are good. Even though they may not be applicable to the permit, there are aspects of those ideas being brought forth that could be applied, and we want to continue to hear those.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
Marty Richmond?
Marty Richmond from Hollister. As Mr. Machado brought up, of course, this is not the first time this has happened over the decades, times before. So I want to thank the City Council for, in this case, tackling it a little different. I appreciate Gordon's idea of, we fixed it right away. Well, actually, we didn't fix it. What we did is we covered it up right away by dropping the lime pellets on it. So I think the analytical way of attacking it will allow you to get a fix as good as possible. Whereas dropping the lime pellets, I can appreciate if you're under that, if you got the problem, you want to get rid of it. But dropping that means essentially every time it happens, you got to drop those lime pellets. Whereas what you really need is a fix under the new rules where it's probably equal to 4 million water softeners dropping the lime pellets. But I would like to put a pitch in for, I don't know if we're getting any economic advantage right now out of the, what comes out of our wastewater plant. We talked a lot about it when we originally put it in, about trying to do something with the water. And we're probably using it to dilute what we put in the river, I assume, which is an economic advantage because it keeps you from getting fined by the water board. But if there's enough left over, maybe we could stop putting it on the spray fields just to get rid of it. I mean, we had ideas of growing lettuce with it. I remember we went through that. You all remember that. Didn't work out, unfortunately. But, this would be an economic advantage if you could pipe it back into town, use it both for this. Certainly, if we provide it, we will charge for it. I guarantee that. The other advantage is the one you talked about, the one that Manny talked about, which is using it for landscaping and such. Because people just don't want to let their lawns die. I certainly don't want to let my lawn die, but I almost died when I saw my water bill last month, okay? So it was trying to decide between the lawn and a heart attack, okay? So I think reusing that water, if there's enough available after we dilute the pollution that has to go into the river, would be a really good way to do it. I understand it's going to be a lot of money, but it's kind of a pilot-y project, the kind of pilot project that the state likes to put money up for occasionally, especially if it's a capital cost. We could put together something and ask for a grant to do it, because you would be on the leading edge. We put the $100 million into the water plant. Now we ought to get our money's worth out of the effluent that comes out of there. So I think it's a great idea, and I'm always very impressed with Manny's presentations from a technical point of view. I want to thank everybody involved for tackling this, because if we're ever going to do anything on that side of town, we have got to get rid of that problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers? Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for coming out and going through the process. We'll move on to item E. There's no business. Item F1.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the second reading of the proposed amendment to the transient occupancy tax. There was no significant changes, or actually no changes whatsoever to the ordinance as originally presented. So staff recommends to read by title only, waive full reading, and adopt the amendment to Hollister Municipal Code as it relates to TOT from 8% to 12%. And it will be on the ballot in November. Not the ballet, because I wrote ballet twice in the report. Paul caught one of them, I caught the other one.
Okay. Are there any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor, I have one speaker's card.
One speaker.
Greg Harvey.
Just a quick comment. I would kind of like to see the wording. I mean, if you're open to it, I'd like to see maybe go up to 12%. My gut feel from a lodging perspective is that 8 to 12, it seems like kind of a big jump. I mean, I know we have one of the lowest TOT rates probably in the state, but 10 seems to be more the number that I think would be the right number, and maybe 12 the year following. And I'm just throwing out an idea, but maybe putting it on the ballot to say up to that. Maybe you don't have to have a vote again next year, and you just do it gradual. When you do 2% this year and 2% the next year, something like that. That's my only comment. My gut just tells me that jumping from 8 to 12, is a little bit of a jump. So that's my only comment.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speaker cards?
No.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, I know that, and I appreciate Greg's comments and I appreciate his input as we move forward with tourism and marketing in San Benito County. I think our desire initially was to, and I don't know what the county decided to do. I think they were going to write something up that said up to 12%. I don't know if they did that or how that even works, but it's not like we generally follow the county's lead on anything anyway. But I think our initial thoughts behind this, Greg, and all those that are interested in this, was to stay uniform throughout the county, and so that was our initial desire and why we decided to go down that route. We did speak to a few folks, and we did feel like 12% was the way to go. So that's how we landed there, pretty much. So if this does go through, I know that there have been other questions and conversations about, okay, well, how is that money going to be utilized? That's a conversation that we'll have if this passes. And I hope we do have that conversation, because that'd be great, you know, a little additional revenue for our community. But I think making this move first and then having that discussion a little later, hopefully in November and December, is going to be good for our community. And then obviously we did dedicate the $50,000 out of the 130 that we're currently collecting toward that. So I hope that it is the council's future desire that if this does move forward and it is approved by the voters, that we look at also another increase of that in the future if we're able to roll out a nice plan with that money. So with that said, I'll move that we move forward with adoption of ordinance number 1101.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Vote. Move forward to item F2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. On July 21st, the City Council held a duly noted public hearing to introduce Ordinance 1102, an ordinance to pre-zone a 3.33 acre parcel into the North Gateway designation for future annexation into the corporate limits of the City of Hollister. Property is located within the sphere of influence between North Chapel Road and Highway 25 bypass east of San Felipe Road. Staff was directed to schedule a second reading of the ordinance for today, August 4th. There has been no changes to the ordinance as originally presented, and staff recommends to read by title only, waive for reading, and adopt ordinance 1102.
Thank you very much. Are there any speaker cards? Any questions from council?
I'd like to make a motion that we read by title only, waive full
Second.
reading, and adopt ordinance 1102.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 4-0 vote. Move forward to item F3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is also requesting the approval of two resolutions. Resolution number 2014-162 is a resolution of the City Council authorizing the mayor to execute an annexation agreement with the property owner for this same property, the 3.3 acre property that was just pre-zoned with ordinance 1102. And also Resolution 2014-163 is a resolution requesting the Local Agency Formation Commission to initiate proceedings for the annexation of territory. Pending approval of these resolutions by the City Council tonight, staff will then forward the application to LAFCO for the review and process of the annexation of territory. So with this, staff recommends the City Council to adopt Resolution number 2014-162, authorizing the execution of the annexation agreement, and adopt Resolution number 2014-163, requesting LAFCO to initiate proceedings for the annexation of territory.
Any speaker cards? Any questions from council?
Motion to approve resolution 2014-162 and 163.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0 vote.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Move forward with item F4.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. On July 21st, the City Council opened, conducted, and closed a public hearing related to the prohibiting installation of certain water softener under an ordinance. Public comment was taken at that time, and the ordinance was introduced and tentatively scheduled for its second reading this evening. However, I believe that that it requires 30-day before the second reading, and so we would recommend that the City Council continue that to the September 2nd meeting for the second reading. During public comment, there was a speaker from the Pacific Water Quality Association of Tustin, California, Clifford Fashionette, that had spoke about some of his concerns with the water softener ordinance. After the public hearing was closed, I spoke with him and told him that I would send him a copy of the draft ordinance the next day, which I did, and asked him if he had any concerns to take a look at the ordinance, mark it up, and send it back so that we could review it with the city attorney, and if there were changes that were appropriate, we would consider those to be brought back. To date, I have not received anything in writing, and I've talked to him on the telephone, but I really don't have a handle on what his concerns are. So until we get that stuff in writing, it's really hard to say what, his concerns were.
Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Clifford Fashnet.
Mayor, City Council. Danny, I would suggest we check your inbox. Pacific Water Quality Association has sent numerous emails in response to this, and I believe that, Mayor, on your email tonight, you may or may not have got it. You have a letter from Assemblyman Alejo that if you like, I can read, or?
No, we have it here.
Okay.
We all have a
Very
copy.
good.
Thank you.
We have, as mentioned, we have several concerns that obviously this is not the proper venue to go over each and every one of those, but we would like to request that we have a open and productive dialogue with the city staff so that we can go over these.
Okay. I think we heard the comments there, so we can make sure we're all getting put into the loop on this so we can have those
Yes.
discussions.
And in some of the emails, I think you will see that this process started better than a year ago. We were promised a seat at the table, and we've been excluded from any talks. So.
Okay. Councilmember Gomez?
Did you receive a copy of the draft ordinance?
We did.
Did you reply with a strike-through copy?
We replied with a couple different letters with concerns.
Did you
We
provide?
have not physically marked up the copy of it as of yet.
Okay, that would be.
Our big concern was initially was the 2-week time that we had, which violated the water code and didn't give us proper time
Okay,
to
so you think
evaluate
by the next meeting, you'll have a strike-through of the
that. We will
ordinance?
have. We have staff working on that.
Okay, great. Yeah, that was my concern because,
Yeah.
when I followed up with staff, after you made your comments last time, was to make sure that, okay, if you have beef with an ordinance, that's fine, but.
And we want to make sure that we get the message across that it's not that we are opposing the ordinance. We want to make sure that this ordinance is crafted in a manner that's equitable and viable for both industry, both citizens, and city council to meet the desired goals that you guys have for it.
Yeah, and we can't do that without the strike-through copy of that.
Understood.
So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers?
No.
Is there a motion to table this for,
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we table this to the September
Second.
2nd meeting.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries, 4-0 vote. We'll move forward with item F5.
Good evening, Mayor Velasquez and council members. This resolution before you relates to the draft Complete Streets concepts that were presented to you at the city council meeting on July 21st. Our concepts are for Nash Road, Tres Pinos Road, Sunny Slope Roads, and McCrae Street. The resolution 2014-164 would essentially do 3 things. First, it would direct staff to begin to conduct environmental review. The report explains that during the month of August, we're soliciting public input on the draft concepts. They are available for public review at the City Hall, the Development Services Department. They're posted on our website, and they're also at the San Diego County Library, and they've been posted on Bonito Link. Another recommendation that would be adopted with this resolution is that there's just an illustration in the draft concepts that shows a potential bypass around the south side of San Diego High School. We're recommending that not be considered as part of this environmental document because it's beyond the scope of the grant itself, and we think it's beyond the scope of the environmental document. Also, San Miguel County is in the process of preparing an environmental document that should be released within the next month or two that examines just the bypass. The third thing is we're recommending with this resolution that you adopt an interim policy that requires that any new development that comes on the corridor there conform to the concepts in this complete streets planning document. The staff report points out that many of these concepts implement policies and generals in the general plan, particularly related to making our transportation system more usable for all modes of transportation. So is there any questions?
Councilmember Friend?
I noticed on the staff report, it says financial impact, 0. So the grant is paying for the environmental impact report, and they're paying for your staff to review it?
The grant is not paying for the environmental impact report. That would be prepared in-house. We're proposing to prepare it in-house.
So, well,
typically, and maybe I should explain, they've made some recent amendments to the California Environmental Quality Act to clarify that some activities related to transportation improvements, like striping a bike lane, are considered to be exempt from the law, so you don't have to conduct environmental review. So there's a lot of the activities, the striping, the bike lanes, especially since they're in an existing right-of-way. There's also categorical exemptions that relate to existing facilities. So there'd be some signal phasing changes. Those would be exempt, and we'll probably explain that in the environmental document. What we think maybe probably isn't exempt, and we're determining that right now, is the construction of the roundabouts. And so that there's 4 roundabouts. And so there would be some grading and excavation, particularly on McCrae Street. There would also be the conversion of part of that street to a public space. And so the environmental document would examine that.
Councilman Friend, I think the other part of the question may have been, although this particular item isn't doing a contract with a firm to do CEQA analysis, I think maybe what your point was is that there is staff time being spent on it, and so there is, if there's a cost associated with that staff time, then that is true. But it's pretty minimal. I don't want to say it's pretty minimal because it's Mary. I'm just saying that we're not going out and we're not going out and hiring a firm to do the environmental work.
Okay. That was my concern.
We probably couldn't afford Mary on the open market, so.
Are there any other questions from council? Do we have any speaker cards?
Motion to approve Resolution 2014-164.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
No? Councilmember Gomez, did you vote?
Yes.
3-1 vote in favor. Move forward to item G1, reports from city council members. Councilmember Gomez.
I didn't have any committee meetings.
Vice Mayor Valdivia.
I pass.
Councilmember Friend.
No, I had no committee meetings.
And I had no committee meetings either. We'll move forward to item G2, informational reports from city council. Councilmember Gomez.
I just want to thank the police chief for his work on National Night Out and partnering with the Sheriff's Department and Target and all that good stuff. I'm sure you're going to make an announcement about that. So, so thank you for your efforts behind that. We do appreciate it. And then, and the only other thing is, because I don't want to sleep on the couch tonight, I do want to say thank you to my wife. It's our 14-year anniversary, marriage anniversary today. And
congratulations.
So, yeah, thank you. And and I'm.
I clapped.
Yeah, thank you. Not the paid clap. But I do want to tell her that I love her.
Oh.
That's it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Vice Mayor Valdivia.
I just want to congratulate you on your anniversary. That's all I have. I don't have anything else. Yeah.
Councilmember Friend.
Well, congratulations, Victor, on 14 years. I do have a report or a comment on an item that the council approved a couple weeks, 2 meetings ago, and it's been finished, and that's the mural on the wall at 3rd and Monterey. Sunday, the mayor and I and about 45 people showed up to dedicate that wall, including KION, who did an outstanding report on it, and it was on the news. And it was something that really impressed a lot of people, that we could get that done with a couple phone calls, a couple drawings, and just how much support there was out there. I mean, I went to the veterans groups without the drawings, and they immediately supported it. And they wrote checks to pay for it. I brought it to the city council with a rendering on conception of it, and the city council backed it. And the young man took about 2 weeks to complete it, and it's just an outstanding. The way I think about it is how the community can come together on these little projects like this. Didn't cost anything. There were people driving by that while they were painting it, handing them cash, offering them food and water because it was hot out there. There was a lot of volunteers that helped to clean up while they were out there. They didn't actually do the painting, but they helped them clean up and stuff. So it really was a community effort. It was kind of neat to see. And I'm looking forward to those young men, there's 3 of them, coming forward to the city council with some more ideas on some other walls and stuff that they're looking at. And I think they really appreciated that the city council backed them on that. Also, they appreciated that the veterans groups paid for it, but that's what the veterans groups are there for. So we had to do that. And I want to thank the chief for even though it started out a little rocky because we forgot to tell the police department that they weren't taggers, that they really had a permission to be out there. And once that got cleared up, they were very good and it helped them. So, and thank the fire department and the fire chief for showing up on Sunday and actually putting a fire truck out in the street to block traffic so we could stand out there and salute the flag and everything. It was a very nice ceremony, so thank you very much. And that's all I have.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Friend, for being there. I didn't have the opportunity to attend, and I apologize. I really wanted to be there. But there's one thing that I was going to mention to Councilmember Friend through the Mayor, of course, is number one, the individual that came up today regarding the active duty folks, and I've seen those banners in other cities, and I think that's really neat, and I think that it's only fit that if, I know you just got a couple of more committee assignments, but I think it would only be fit if Councilmember Friend engaged the individuals.
Well, I couldn't ask the question while he was talking,
Yeah.
but that's what I wanted to find
Great.
out was
All right.
how to get a hold of him and how they were going to be, how do we identify those flags?
I think you have his contact info. We met him at the parade. I don't know if you remember that. He was judging there, but I believe I have his cell phone number, so I'll share that with you.
Just give him my new cell phone number
Yeah.
and let him get a hold of me.
Great.
I will work with him.
Yeah, wonderful. And then another thing I wanted to mention to you too was, you know, with this whole veterans theme, I guess throughout Hollister, and I feel the same way. I think Marty mentioned it, that we seem to be very supportive of our active duty and those that have served in the past. But you know, the city of San Jose over the past few years dedicated started a art box project, and they would paint utility boxes. Different organizations would step up and sponsor a box, and we would help coordinate that. And I know that I'm sure all of us were contacted by Roland over the past probably week. So 2 weeks ago, I was going to mention it to Ray because I thought it would be great for the veterans to be able to use that as an opportunity.
He was there Sunday and talked to me.
Oh, great. Oh, awesome. Yeah, so I think that's another opportunity. It doesn't all, there was other themes involved. I loved the Pinnacles theme, the biker theme. I mean, they had a lot of different themes for these art boxes or these utility boxes for them to be art boxes, and I love the idea. I think that's a great idea if we could implement something like that. So, maybe that's another opportunity to work with them to establish that veterans relationship with Roland.
And he sent me an email with some examples, and they're not all veterans.
Yeah.
Things. They're like you said.
They're different,
And,
yeah.
and if you want, I will forward that email to the rest of the council so you guys will have a chance to look at it.
Yeah, great. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, and going on that theme, I want to thank all the artists out there, and it's good to see the artists coming back alive and invading our community with all the great things they bring. And on that note, I want to thank the San Benito Stage Company. They had a great play recently. I hope all of you had a chance to meet it. Really some talented actors in our community. My wife and I and my kids loved the play, so it's part of having a really good community. I want to thank Ray again for really pushing forward that mural. Councilmember Friend took that and made that happen quickly in record time. So I think if the artists are out there listening, we'll help you with your projects. Just keep bringing them forward to us. We want to see all these beautiful things. So thank you very much. And I want to thank former council member Robbie Scatini for all you did here at the council and your devotion to the city all the time and all the committees you've been on and all the hard work you've done over the years. Thank you very much for being part of our city.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, you may.
Yeah. Robbie, I didn't recognize you at first with that hat. I was looking to see if it was a Dodger hat. I also want to thank you. I'm not saying goodbye yet, but I want to thank you for your work, and it's been wonderful working with you, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thank you very much. City Manager.
Well, I would like to say goodbye to Robbie, and no, really, I thought maybe I should have probably said something earlier, but Robbie was a council member several years back, and we had always our share of differences, and it's been fun. And then this last time, again, and I think that for some reason he doesn't ever go away for very long, so I'm sure he'll be back. So I'm going to keep my words to a minimum because you never know. But I want to also thank him for all the time that he spent, and I feel a little bit like in the Board of Supervisors chambers because that's about where he sits in that room every single Tuesday, right in the back row. But I want to thank him too for all his dedication and all the committees that he served on and whatnot, and coming and meeting with me every Monday before the meeting.
Anything else you want to mention, or?
I don't think so, unless there's something that you want me to. No, I'm good.
City Attorney.
I don't have anything to report, Mayor Velasquez.
Thank you very much. Chief.
A couple things, as Councilman Gomez mentioned. Tomorrow night is National Night Out here in Hollister. We're bringing it downtown, first time it's ever happened, 5 to 8 p.m. Right here in the 400 block will be a ground zero for National Night Out. Should be a great event. We are teaming up with the Sheriff's Department, but there's going to be many agencies there. Should be fun by all. I'm really excited about it. And that kind of dovetails with the last 3 weeks we've had some tragedies in our community where some young people have lost their lives. And I would encourage anyone that wants to take a crime against a stand against this violent crime to come and celebrate National Night Out with us tomorrow night as a community together, because only together can we stamp this out of our community. Secondly, I am meeting with Roland actually Wednesday, and he's got just plans after plans, and they're really, really interesting plans, I think. And lastly, I want to thank Councilman Scatini for all of his support, and I appreciate that. And he's a lifelong police officer, and so I'll always thank him for his service to this community for that, and also on the council. So thank you.
Thank you very much. City Clerk?
I'd like to thank Robbie too, but I know he's going to come see me this week. And Friday is the last day to file for election for City Council Districts 2 and 3, as well as the mayor. The term for, or the deadline for the city treasurer filing is extended to next Wednesday. That's the only seat that is extended. That's it.
Thank you very much. Item H, J, and K, no business.
For adjournment?
There's a motion for
Second.
adjournment. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 4-0 vote. Thank you very much, everyone.